Go, Alpha Mama.
Yeehaw! It's episode 24 today, and we have some juicy updates for you because life is lit and we are sliving in the northern rivers.
Sliving in the northern rivers, and Alpha Mama yeehawed because now she's a cowgirl because it's her first time living in the country.
Howdy.
A rural chick.
And we also have another cowboy, Dobacco Sunset, is now featured on the podcast.
It's good to be back under a new pseudonym. Tim is evolving since he went north. New haircut, potentially new name, feeling into it. Dobacco Sunset.
So, starting off with a poll, what name do you prefer? Dobacco Sunset or Tim Dolderson?
Look, it's a no-brainer.
I feel like Tim has served me well, but I need something bigger.
Yeah.
I've outgrown Tim. Tim is done. Maybe I'll come back to Tim one day, but for the moment it's not feeling right.
R.I.P. Tim.
R-I-P-T-I-M.
Yeah. No,
It's already happening.
I had a strong hit that the name needs to start with D. So we were like, is it Dim? Is it Dim?
I hope it's not Dim.
We were working with Dick Dildo's son for a while.
That's my porn name.
Yeah. Dick Dildo's son.
Yes.
Very penetrative, that one.
Yeah.
It's very fair. No, I really like Dobacco Sunset.
Yeah.
I think it's unique. It's strong. Like no one has the name.
No.
It's a mood.
I was going through the name Unidex of different names starting with D, but I need something that's not a conventional name.
Yeah.
And
You don't want to be
Dobacco.
Derek.
No,
That's my ex's name.
like, why would I change from Tim to,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dave.
What about Damiana?
No, it's Dobacco.
Damiana.
It's Dobacco. All
Dobacco,
right.
start throwing other tools in the workshop.
Okay, fine. Cool. Well, there you go. You can vote on it. Give us your thumbs up for Dobacco Sunset.
No thumbs. How dare you?
Oh, yeah. No thumbs up.
Thumbs are not
We'll cancel
appreciated.
you.
Okay.
All other emojis.
All
yeah.
other emojis
Yeah,
welcome.
anything but the thumbs up.
Okay.
We prefer a thumbs down, if anything.
Cancel me.
Yeah, Alpha Mama's cancelled, so it's just me and Dobacco Sunset. Yeah, Alpha Mama's in jail. Podcast jail.
All right. Well, speaking of jail and podcast jail, we played a game the other night at our friend's place that was like a weird version of Monopoly. And I conked out on a couch because I couldn't get with it. I'm sorry. Look, if you ever have the opportunity to play this game, what's it called?
I want to say All Aboard, which would be probably a more sensical name for it because it
It's
was
not what
like
it's called, yeah.
building your train empire across Europe.
Yeah.
Ticket to Ride.
Ticket to Ride.
That's what it was called.
Cheers,
Ticket
guys.
to Ride,
Ride.
Europe
Yeah.
Edition.
If anyone ever says, hey, do you want to play Ticket to Ride? Say no.
Hey. Paisley and I actually got into it.
But if I knew it next time, if anyone asked me to play, I would say no.
Thank you.
I'd say no. Sorry, Pete. Pete listens to our podcast.
We love
too.
you, Pete.
I had
Love
fun.
you.
I definitely had fun, but it wasn't my game.
It
of
wasn't
choice.
my game.
Look,
and I
it was an
conked out.
experience. Not for Alpha Mama. Her experience was slumber.
My experience was I'm tapping out and going to sleep. Thank you. As soon as I had to use my brain to like figure things out,
There
I was
were a
like, I'm
lot
out.
of pieces and components to that. It was one of those like 1,000 little pieces, multiple cards, pulling from different decks,
Ugh.
different little like idiosyncrasies each turn. Like it was a lot, but I mean, I got my train nerd on.
I mean, if you've got that strong mechanic brain, yeah, for sure.
yeah,
like
very strategic.
It was good once we got the piece. Like once I understood. I guess maybe I would play again. It's just very, very specific time. Like if I would have liked in another alternative parallel world of hanging out with Pete for the first time for us to do something else maybe.
We did do Cards Against Humanity
That
to
was
start
a
off with,
vibe.
and
I
that
love
was
that.
a hoot.
That was a hoot.
That was
I've never said that in my life, but it was a hoot.
Yeah, I realized because I love games and I love board games, but I realized from that game, I realized that I like emotionally driven games or like
creative
where
games.
games where you emotionally connect.
Yes.
That's
It was
what I
too
realized.
for me. It was too strategy in our
very
heads
logic.
for like for a meeting, like for like first time hanging
Like a hang,
out.
yeah.
It was a bit, but it was good. Like we still had fun after a while when we're like. I broke the ice and was like, "Hey, we're meant to play this game as a social game, but we're so deeply in
It
our
was
strategy."
taking up all brain
and
capacity.
then it was like, "Cool, let's like get to know each other a bit
Yeah.
more." And then
You
the
asked
game
some
stopped.
dumb questions.
Then the game stopped. We had to like have breaks of like, okay, now we're deeply in strategy. And now we're in deep,
True.
vulnerable conversation, and we couldn't do both at the same time.
It was necessary to break it up.
And I was just knocked out on the couch. But my mind was on because I was listening to what was happening, but my body was just super like conked out. Couldn't move. I mean, it was a long day. Okay, so for those
I'm
of you
going to pause this
listening-
one. I'm going to say, I feel like this part isn't interesting to anyone else but us.
They
What-
got to work for the content.
We're getting to the story. We're just
need to
like,
wait
I-
for
kicking it off with a board game
Wait,
anecdote.
Sliving in the Northern Rivers.
This
We
that
have
doesn't
slived.
that doesn't feel like sliving to me. Talking about a train game right now.
Well, they needed to know so that they don't have that experience.
Oh, yeah.
I needed to let
Ticket
them
to
know.
ride? No, thank you, ma'am.
don't take that ticket.
Yeah, don't take the ticket. Okay, cool. Let's come back to what has been fucking sliving in the last. So we've been up here for like
A week and a half, maybe 2
Yeah.
weeks. No,
Like
a week and a half.
11, 12 days, basically.
Yeah.
we came up on Thursday, and it's only Monday,
It's
so-
Monday. It's Tuesday when you're listening. Then Wednesday. Okay, it's been 2 weeks if you're
Right.
listening now.
If you're listening to this, it's too late. So we've been up here just under 2 weeks, and so much has happened. Like you won't even believe. I've been my Instagram's been popping off with my live updates and what I've been doing. Like all my fucking engagements up, and it's just like shit is happening. It's cooking in the Northern Rivers. It's cooking on all 4 burners.
What is cooking beyond Instagram engagement?
Sliving.
Obvi.
Sliving.
I mean, like, okay, so for reference, everyone knows I'm fucking unvaccinated. So living in Sydney was fucking shit for me because I couldn't do anything, right? And also, I burned a lot of my friendship bridges with people, and it was just crapola. I was like waking up in the day, hanging out in the backyard all day.
Crying over boys.
Crying over boys, having sex with boys. I don't
Playing
really care
music
about.
over
Like,
my sessions.
it was just yeah, true. It was just like I felt like I wasn't really alive. And then come to the Northern Rivers, people want to hang with me. People want to talk to me. They're excited that I'm here.
Yeah, how quickly did your story get crushed that you said you had no friends up here?
I know, totally. It was so good. First night I was here. Well, so we drove up, right? And the boys drove up, and we also went our separate ways because I have my own little place that I'm staying. The boys are staying up further in. Where are we? Murwillumbah. Maba. And so I was on my own. As soon as I arrived, I mean, that's another story, which I'll tell you about another time. But basically, I jumped straight into facilitation of the advanced spiral practitioner training. And that was like, 4 days straight. And then
You hit the ground running.
I hit the ground running.
Fast.
And the first night, Dane Thomas picked me up. Hey, Dane.
Hey,
shout
Dane.
out. We're
He gets
naming
upset that
names.
we never say his name when we talk about him.
Dane Thomas, the wizard. He picked me up, took me out to a Mexican restaurant, which was really cool in his like giant fancy car. And it was so nice to just feel like, oh yeah, I got mates here, took me out to dinner, we had a chat, and I hadn't been in a restaurant for so fucking long. It was like, oh my God, I'm back in the world. I'm not a ghost anymore. So yeah, I mean, that's just a snippet, but yeah, it's been happening. Like life has been being slived.
Being slived. What's your quick antidote of sliving in the Northern Rivers, Dobacco
The
Sunset?
huge hit of nature, like beaches, tea tree lakes, like going bush, taking Acacia out on all sorts of adventures, seeing him like a duck to water, getting his water confidence up, throwing sticks with the boy, getting some sun, the tan.
Yeah, we're
the
tanned
tan
as
is
fuck.
well on our way.
We are brown.
It's a strong start to summer, but yeah, just being able to like we've been doing some house inspections, and you see the house, maybe it's not, but then you can also go to the beach and check out these new neighborhoods, which I'm still feeling the lay of the land, what's Ocean Shores like, what's Pottsville like, what's Kingscliff like, having these chances to swim at every beach. I'm a huge water person, so give me a body of water and I will jump in it. So that's been amazing, and just a perfect antidote to the heat, because it is hot and steamy up here. Some very dramatic thunderstorms also.
We've lived through some hectic thunderstorms since we've been up here already.
All the weather.
The nature is hectic. I mean, that's part of the reason why we left as well, to be in nature. But nature is wild.
Nature, you crazy.
Yeah, you crazy. Yeah, it's hectic storms. The power cut out in my place for a bit, and it was oh shit, and then spiders and all sorts of crazy things, and ants, and it's all happening.
You are always in touch with nature, whether it's the cacophony of different insects in the nighttime, or the geckos climbing in the corners of the ceiling walls.
Our neighbour had to chop off the head of a brown snake the other day.
Wow.
Who crawled from underneath his barbecue cover. He picked it up and the dog's like, "Wow, wow, 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 wow," and he turned around and the fucking brown snake said, he grabbed a shovel, BAM! Off with your head.
And then I had a dream about snakes this morning. There's obviously snakes in the energy.
Well, they come out in the heat. That's what Tyron said. So Tyron Mowbray, shout out. He came over the other night, and I was talking about my spider phobias, and he was like, "Oh yeah, and snakes too." And I was like, "Fuck,
they get lots of snakes at their house,
man."
But they get pythons, which isn't as intense as the brown snakes. We get brown snakes at our property.
Oof.
Yeah. We're not, and no pythons here.
Snakes, spiders, and sliving.
Also, we were having dinner with some friends last night, and they said there were snakes living in their wall cavity. Remember that?
I must have it.
I think you were at the bathroom, but yeah, they were having these crazy dreams. Oof. And then they found out that there was a family of pythons living inside the wall, right where their heads are, behind their bed.
Yeah.
And this was in Lennox Head, and I think the Aboriginal Indigenous story, dream time, is Lennox Head is the head of the python or head of the snake.
Yeah.
Wow.
And they were really tapped into that energy, and were dreaming wildly while these snakes were hissing behind the gyprock.
One time, when I lived up here last time, I went to take this girl on a date, and I got to her house, and it was pouring rain, and I had driven from my house to hers, and I blindfolded her in a house, and then went and walked her into the car, sat her in the car, and then I sat down. I looked down at her feet, and a python was climbing up from underneath the engine, because it would have been hot in there, and I just "Hey, I think we might take your car." I didn't want to fucking terrify her. So I got her out, and then walked her to her car, and I grabbed a python by its tail and reeled it out of my car and moved it away from, because it was climbing up because the engine was warm.
Yeah.
And but there was a python at her fucking feet, so...
Guys, how can I live here?
How can you slip? You don't live, you slip here. You slip.
Oh my god. Look, I know, of course, it's going to happen at some point. It's bound to happen.
Yeah, I was scared of snakes before I moved up here, and then I just had so much snake medicine come through of very specific times where I was thinking about certain things, and areas that I was contracted, and then I'd see a snake. One time a snake rolled over my leg at a tea tree lake. Another one came down on my balcony when I was eating breakfast. A few other occasions where it was very potent, the message there of shed the skin, keep growing, shed the skin, keep growing. And then there was a time, because I was always freaked out by the way that they move without bones, and not understanding the organism of their movement was the bit that freaked me out. And then one time where I just had to, where I'd overcome my fear, was at a beach just up here in Byron. There was a massive, a python that was as long as the road on, and there was on either side, probably 5 cars backed up. And they were beeping and didn't know what to do, and I just got out of the car and pushed him along, because just my instinct was someone's going to just run over him if not.
Yeah.
And it was funny, there was like a whole bunch of tourists there, international, and they're like, oh my god, it's Crocodile Dundee! It's Steve Owen! And I'm like, this is the first time I ever done this, so I was terrified, but yeah, I just had to face it. And like the medicine up here, I became okay, mostly with pythons.
Yeah, I feel like there's a distinction. Pythons I can deal with, but you know, a black or a brown snake,
I've seen a few up here,
different game.
and it's
so funny, like international listeners, you know, like all my American friends, they're always like, oh, Australia, snakes and spiders. And because I've always lived in the city, in Sydney, I've been like, nah, man. Like, you never see, like, you'll see a huntsman or a daddy long legs, but they're harmless. And then you move to, and we're not even rural, you know, like, we're in like, you know, Byron surrounds, like we're not like, we don't live in like fucking the desert or like in the middle of the forest, but already there's so much more nature here, snakes and spiders and possums and all sorts of things. So it's definitely initiation for me, you know, like bush girl emerging, like what the fuck. My shower is outdoors. It's fun.
It's amazing.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Gorgeous.
But it's different.
There is literally a wasp nest right above my head, and the wasps fly in and out as I'm showering. You know what I mean? It's like, it's full on.
I remember a few times, like when working in the music industry, and especially touring with Viking, we toured with a lot of big international, especially American rappers. And two very specific times that made me laugh a lot was one time we were on tour with Royce the 5'9", who is
I
like...
thought you were going to say Reese Witherspoon.
That was another tour.
Legally Blonde.
Royce the
Legally Blonde tour.
Royce the 5'9", who is Eminem's best friend, done albums with Eminem. And one of the shows was in Byron Bay, and then the next day, where were we? Maybe Brisbane. And after the show, he was like, he pulled me and Neri aside and he was like, no one told me that in Byron Bay, where we were last night, there's snakes and pythons and huntsmen. There was one in my hotel. He's like, that's the scariest shit that's ever happened to me in my life.
Oh my God.
He's like, I'm talking to tour management that no one should have to go to Byron Bay where you're fucking in danger. He was like terrified for his life, and then and then he was like saying like, that's some of the most gangster shit I've ever seen in my life. And at the time he was beefing with Tory Lanez. They were beefing on Twitter as we were on tour. And he's like super like gangster at times. And then this video came up. I'd never seen it before, but back in the 90s, he was beefing with Benzino, and he was calling me and Neri like super gangsters for like being okay with pythons and whatnot. And I was telling him stories. He was like, that's the most gangster shit I've ever heard in my life, that you've seen a snake or you pick one up. And I was like, there's this video that came up on the internet where he pulled up like a bazooka and death threatened someone. And I was like, I literally seen you on the internet with a bazooka going, I will shoot you with this. And he's like, that's not gangster. You can control guns. You can't control snakes.
Wow.
You can't control nature.
Americans are weird.
They certainly are.
Weird.
Yeah, and
Has he never been to Texas or somewhere rural in America for a tour? Surely.
yeah, but it's like alligators in a river or something like that. It's not like,
true.
and like you have to go out into the desert for these things rather than like just next to your venue or in your accommodation. There's these things, and that was the same with Tech Nine when we're on tour with him every night. Him and Chris Calico were getting me to tell him stories about like when I used to chase kangaroos or I got kicked over by a kangaroo or whatever, and they're like, this is the like wildest shit I've ever heard in my life. Because Calico was like, my mom used to tell me stories like this when I was a kid, and I thought these people didn't exist. But to know you've been bitten by a bat or whatever, they were like, every night, Paisley, tell us another story.
Wow, I guess because America's so populated, you know, that compared to Australia, we still have so much land that's not populated yet. And so if you populate, you know, so much land, well, the animals have to die. They don't know where to go. They're not going to come out, you know. Damn, that's sad.
Yeah. What's my version of sliving so far in here? Definitely, even though like very similar to yours, like it's a combo of you two, is definitely the community relaxation around COVID, and like
Oh, yeah.
within the first day and a half, Tim and I realized, oh, we're the only ones wearing masks in all the shops,
Yeah.
checking in, blah blah blah. Like no one wear masks, no one's checking in. It's all just like it's there as a like, please wear a mask in here or check in or whatever. But I think it's just protocol, but no one actually
Yeah,
cares.
they go through the formalities, but it's amazing how quickly you kind of adapt.
Yeah.
You forget about what it was
Yeah,
like
yeah.
down in Sydney.
I think I have only had to show my passport once. I can't even remember where we were, but I think we had to show it once. But yeah, just like the relaxation around that, and just like no tension between anyone. Like we obviously had a lot of tension between different groups down in Sydney, and yeah, definitely the community just all together, just like knowing that everyone knows each other and they all love one another, and it's not like everyone's hanging out all the time, but everyone fucking does hang out. And just already, you know, we went out to Pete's and had like an event, like a little gathering there, and then we went, like we had a party here, and then we went and hung out with these people and this people. Like everyone's super social, wants to do things. There's art, there's ritual, there's experiences, there's hangs, there's games.
And so much hugging, like so much physical contact without hesitation, without like, oh, is this right? Is this person gonna like
None of
freak
those fucking
out?
elbow things.
None of these fist pump, elbow tap, awkward like preemptive hesitation. What is he gonna do? Should I go in for the handshake?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been nice even just seeing you like being new to the space, and like I seen at like the Christmas party, like I can't know a lot of people I didn't even know were like, oh, they were just like cuddling up to you and holding hands or whatever, and I'm like, oh, that's so nice. Like, you know, completely they probably never hadn't heard of you before here, and now there's cuddling.
I mean, a few
touching,
people,
your
said, "I've seen your bum on Instagram." that was their opener.
Yeah. I checked out your. I saw.
You're
I heard
welcome.
someone, I think Steph
You're
said,
welcome.
"Hey, I saw your butt on Instagram. I checked it out," or something like that.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
The tobacco bum.
Tobacco
Bum set.
Yeah.
Fuck yeah. I mean, yeah, we've done some cool shit, you know, like it's so cool to just be in a reality here where, well, it's just a different reality, you know, and you just have that realization that all of these rules and all of these, like, you can't do this and you can't do that. It's just so it's just this human crap. It's just made up shit that if we all agree and do it, then it makes it real. But you go to a place like in Mullum, it's like the anti-vax capital of Australia. No one gives a fucking shit. You just do what you're doing, and and that's it. And you know, and if you get COVID, you deal with it.
Yeah.
You
One of
know?
my Spiral clients got COVID this week.
Yeah.
And they're from Melbourne, and they're moving through it. And I sent him Saya's post and just said, like, read this shit. You know, she journeyed it as a medicine, as a like something magical.
As an initiation.
Yeah, as an initiation.
Stuff to learn.
Talking about getting the antibodies and blah blah blah. Are we allowed to? How do you two feel about incriminating ourselves?
Fuck yeah, let's do it.
I don't mind.
Like, just when it comes to the rules, you know, like we've been realizing things, like, you know, how we're saying we're here, no one's wearing masks, no one's checking in, no one's talking about it, no one's like pro-vax, anti-vax. It's just all super chill. And, you know, a big thing is like Queensland's borders have been closed down, and like no one from New South Wales can come over. You'll get big fines, go to jail, blah blah blah. We literally just walked over the border the other day and we hung out in the Gold Coast. As of today, when we're talking, you're allowed to go over the border. It's opened back up, but last week we did it, and fucking everyone around here's doing it, and it's like you could walk over and it's like there's no police, there's no one monitoring it. It's just like, oh.
So I mean, it's all just smoke and mirrors. You know, it's illusion. Like I think that time my birthday, and I would have talked about in the podcast when we were high on mushrooms, and I had that big realization. We were in the cemetery, and it's like, the secret is you just do what you want to do, and then you just see what happens. That's it. You walk right up to the border, and you realize, I can just walk over.
It's a little verge of grass in the middle of the road. There's no... I mean, maybe it was different in the height of lockdown, but like there was nothing. There was nothing there.
that's the thing. It's not cut and dry. You know, the borders. You know, even like state borders. Like, what is it? It's really ridiculous. Like to have a line that cuts through the land and that says your Queensland,
and it's like,
New South. It's just fucking bullshit.
I don't understand. You know, there's probably some reason to it, but how it's like, you know, their border's not even straight. You know, it's like around here, around this part. Oh my god,
it's absurd.
So lame.
That's why, you know, I feel like, to me, like, that's true. You know, the truth is that it's just land. It's just land, and then you just walk, and then, you know, and yeah, at some point you might get arrested or you might get in trouble. But if that happens, well, you deal with it in that moment. Like, just the same way you would deal with any other thing, a snake, you would deal with a spider, you would deal with a car, you would deal with... It's just life, you know? It's all there is. All there is fucking life in different manifestations, and you just meet it in the moment, and that's it.
Have you, you know, because we're in a new place, and this has been and you hadn't before been able to go out, but you're saying before your rule is you have to tell everyone that you're not vaccinated.
Yeah, nah, it's different here. And the reason why I feel like it's not important here
is because Dobacco and I are the only vaccinated people up here.
We're the odd ones out up here.
Well, yeah, I just feel like the assumption here is that the majority of the people are not vaccinated. So therefore, therefore I don't feel I need to, you know, tell anyone, because it's already assumed that that's the reality. And I've kind of relaxed on my stance on that anyway. Like, since being up here, and like also just since like reading a lot more, doing a lot more research, and just seeing, okay, the new Omicron variant coming out, like everyone's fucking vaccinated in Sydney, and still there's fucking COVID outbreaks. And now everyone has to get boosters, and I'm just like, fucking cancel me for being a conspiracy theorist, but I'm just going all the way with it now. I'm just like, it's so fucking clear to me that vaccines are not the answer. Like, and I'm not saying don't get vaccinated. I'm just saying they're not the way out of the pandemic. I don't believe that they are. You know, and cool, if you believe that they are and you want to go do that, that's fine. But from what I'm seeing, I don't think they're the answer, because they're clearly not stopping it from mutating.
It doesn't seem to be working.
Yeah, people who are vaccinated are still getting it, still transmitting it. Even with the fucking third booster, it's happening. So it's like, how far do you want to take this? And now they're trying to get children under 5 years old to get vaccines. And then how many boosters are they going to have? It's just like insanity to me at this point. So for that reason, I'm just like, this shit is fucking bullshit. I'm not playing anymore. I'm not playing this game.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm tapped out right now.
It's a whole lot easier not to play the game, to not play the game up here.
When you're sliving.
When you're sliving in the Northern Rivers.
It's a whole different world.
Totally. Yeah, and at the same time, you know, I understand different countries have it differently, but, you know, I guess maybe it's different for me because I know a lot of people who've had COVID who've recovered and, you know, who live naturally. And like, yeah, a good friend of mine, all her kids had COVID last week and she's had it already and she's just looking after them. But she's a naturopath, so she fucking knows what to do, you know? And there's so many herbs and plant medicines that have been proven scientifically, peer-reviewed studies that show that these plants and herbs are effective at treating COVID, but the mainstream media doesn't cover that shit, you know? And that's infuriating to me, to tout vaccines as the only answer to something that actually, you know, there are a lot of different approaches that you could use for it.
Yeah, I had like a bit of a cry about COVID stuff the other day with one of my clients because they wanted to go visit their family over in New Zealand for Christmas and they're not vaccinated. And they were going to go over, do whatever, but they just couldn't afford to do the 2-week quarantine. So they can't afford, you know, like, because you have to quarantine
I mean, can't afford it financially, but also can't afford it, like, time-wise. 2 weeks of your life stuck in a hotel.
Totally. Yeah, it's tough. I mean, there's so many factors, you know, and it's the infuriating thing is just how the rules sometimes seem so inhumane and like so illogical as well. And you're just like, are we becoming robots? Like, the whole thing, like everyone has to be vaccinated. Well, if you've had COVID and you've recovered and you have antibodies and you have a level of immunity that's actually stronger than being vaccinated, so why isn't that allowed? Like, if you've recovered from COVID, you should be allowed to be in society and participate. That to me is like logical. But that's
They
not
should
the
have
law.
now that we have the vaccine pass, we should have I have COVID, like I've had COVID pass.
Yeah.
But you should. But you, in some countries you can do that, like in Europe and places like that. If you have antibodies and you can prove that, then you can participate.
It's amazing. Yeah, it's sort of like getting the chicken pox when you're little. It's
Exactly.
Like, I've had the chicken pox. It's fine. Yeah.
And the funny thing about it is like the logic is like, oh, but we're protecting the immunocompromised by getting vaccinated. Okay, so an unvaccinated person who's not immunocompromised is not allowed in a venue, but an immunocompromised person is allowed in the venue, but they're not vaccinated. So it's like, oh, so it just doesn't make any fucking sense to me. And it's like, well, if you're immunocompromised and vaccinated people can still transmit it, shouldn't you just not go to the venue? Shouldn't you just stay home then and let the healthy people come out? I mean, it sounds really fucking shit to say, but how can we like, I don't want to sacrifice my health or my well-being to try and protect every single person in the world. I can't do that. I can't, it's like, it's like, to me, it's just not, I'm not going to do that.
I'm not picking up what you're saying just there.
Well, like, okay, for me, right, if I know that there's a risk with vaccinations, then if I get vaccinated, I'm taking a risk on my health. I don't want to do that just so that I can protect somebody, like trying to protect everybody else. I don't want to have to do that. I don't want to have to sacrifice my health potentially to try and protect other people. Like, it sounds really fucking selfish, but that's authentically what I feel.
So Leah Steele did a live video today and talked about Oblivion in it, and someone commented in there, this guy goes, "Are you a Pfizer shot? Because you made my heart stop."
Don't. Now, the memes have been golden. The memes that have been coming out have been so golden. Yeah. And, I had because I was writing copy yesterday for this, I'm doing this webinar, right? 2022, Intention 2022. And I was writing copy and I was like, the words conspiracy theorist are getting thrown out. I'm like, no, I want to be a conspiracy practitioner. That's what I want to be now. Because when you look at the word conspiracy from the word conspire, it actually means to breathe together, right? Spire is from breath and con is together. So to breathe together, right? So it's like to conspire, to actually work together, to come together, to create together, to bring life, to inspire life in the world together. Like, that's what I want to practice. It's not a theory anymore. There's so many things that are just like very clear to me that I see. It's like, it's not a conspiracy theory. It's like, now I'm just like practicing the conspiracy now.
I feel like either you should do an offering with, or we should do a podcast with Illuminati Congo titled that, like conspiracy practitioners, or I feel like there's an offering in there that he'd be like, yeah, I'm down for that.
Totally. Okay, we'll reach out to him.
Because he's the biggest conspiracy practitioner.
Totally. But that's the thing. It's like, I used to feel like, oh no, I'm afraid people are going to think I'm a conspiracy theorist. Being up here, I'm just like, bruh. It's like, it's just normal here, It's not a conspiracy. It's just like, this is reality.
Yeah, it's the lived truth here.
Yeah. It's interesting.
Okay, I feel like we should park.
Park COVID.
COVID, okay. Goodbye. You can't live with us anymore.
Not sliving.
How was doing your first gig since all the policies came in?
Yeah, I mean, it was really nice to be able to perform for people who really are my target market audience, All of my songs are informed by my spiritual journey and my processes and my unpacks and all of my blah, blah, blah. To be able to perform those songs to people who get it, get the deeper themes and have journeyed it themselves is really beautiful. And, my shows are always super spontaneous and interactive and engaging in those ways. So it was really beautiful. And like behind me to have what is it? Wollumben.
Wollumben.
This Indigenous name. Mount Warning and this fire pit in front. It was just really beautiful. And yeah, I felt really received and really welcomed. And yeah, it's like getting back on the horse.
Yeah.
Getting back on the horse.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's nice. Thanks, Vic. We love you.
Yeah, we love you, Vic.
Yeah. But more than that, though, more than just the performance, for me, what that night gave me, so basically to recap, on Saturday night, Victoria Redbard has a business called Institute of New Paradigm Intimacy.
Yes.
And it was their Christmas party, their end-of-year Christmas party. So some of her students were there, some of her team were there, her business team. And she invited me to come play music, and we had some ritual theatre moments, and it was really beautiful. But the conversations, you know, that were had that night, and Vic talking about the vision of her work, and Miroslav talking about the vision of her work, and then Dane coming and us having, so we were like 11 people in the spa, and the spa was overflowing, and we're all naked in the spa, and we were talking about cryptocurrency and the new paradigm and the future vision of the world, and like inspiring conversations that were so nourishing, that made me remember who I am and what I'm here to do. And Sydney has never really been my place. Like, Sydney music scene is beautiful, and I love the community aspect, but like talking to Sydney musicians, like no one's having the conversations that we're having. No one is talking about the real healing or transformational qualities of music or artistry. No one's talking about artists as mystics, artists as oracles, artists as visionaries. You know, in Sydney, if you want to be a musician, it's so you can be famous.
Yeah,
you can be a celebrity.
You can be on Spotify playlist.
Yeah, and that's not really what I'm about, you know. And being in that circle, talking to Dane and talking to Victoria, and just feeling into the deeper vision and the deeper values of why we do what we do, and seeing the dots joining and seeing like, fuck, we are here as purposeful individuals. We're here to actually impact change in the planet, and like that is so much more nourishing and exciting for me than just fucking doing a gig in the pub, you know, to a bunch of randoms who don't know what I'm talking about. Like it's still doing something, but it's not really what I'm here to do.
No. How's for you, Dobacco, coming into a whole, like you had a little microdose of it when we came up one time, but now being a week here and just experiencing the different levels of people in entrepreneurship, embodiment, sex coaching, crypto, the constant nakedness.
I mean, it's beautiful and refreshing. It's also almost like coming into a foreign land in a sense, because there's a particular language that gets utilized, you know.
I need to make a dictionary.
There's only so many transmissions and containers, but there's probably like words I can't even think of now, but I'm still sculpting them. I'm like, yeah, I know that word in this context, but hang on.
It sounds like they're using it differently.
What are we meaning by this? But like the conversation's moving quickly, and I don't want to be like, excuse me, what does that word mean? But yeah, I love just like through osmosis, just being around these people, these ideas, and learning and kind of up leveling my own, you know, frequency that I'm vibrating at as well, because I feel like there's definitely a different energy and a different perspective of seeing how one can move through the world and interact with it. So it's really it's inspiring, and I feel like it's a great place to evolve as well. It's the right place for me at the moment. It definitely feels right.
We call that learning from the field. We talk a lot about the field.
The field,
that's another thing. The field.
It felt this in the field.
You know what? I'm going to fucking make a dictionary, or like a glossary, probably more accurately, of all the words that get thrown around in these spiritual circles, because people don't know, you know, it's so important to have that. So it would be like holding space, the field, transmission, and then
I think Atlas did a video on that one time, I think.
Did he?
I think, as a character, but continue.
True. Well, like this piece, there's this piece around.
There's this piece.
There's this piece around us.
It's English, but it's the vernacular and the definitions behind these words that I thought I was familiar with. It's like, it's kind of like you're tripping a little bit. You know? You're just like, wait, what?
Yeah. There's just peace around.
Yeah,
That is
yeah,
hilarious to me.
So I was speaking to this piece.
Yeah,
I think you've got to say it with this.
You have to do the thing.
You can't.
Just a little pinch when it's saying this piece.
Yeah, you can't
Yeah.
see it, but just imagine us doing a little pinchy in the sky.
Yes. Eros.
When I type that on my computer or in my text and because I have Grammarly attached to both of my things because I'm really bad with grammar, it's like constantly like, what you're saying isn't proper English. I'm like, no, you don't understand our vernacular.
It's
Come on,
Northern
Grammarly.
Rivers English.
It's not adhering to high English grammar. It's playing its own game.
Yeah.
Yes, but it's beautiful, you know, to see language evolve with the people and to meet the needs of our conversations and to meet, you know, the essence.
The essence.
It allows you to talk about concepts that you couldn't really talk easily about with everyday English or Australian.
Totally, yeah, and you know, sometimes like I think about in my Instagram posts, you know, like there's a lot of processes that I'll go through or that I'm taking people through that normal people just what the
reading
fuck
that,
are you
like,
talking
what is
about?
that
What is a
about?
quantum clear on an archetype? Like, what are you talking about? And sometimes I don't care if people don't get it. Sometimes I'm just like,
You either
it's
get
fine.
it or you don't.
Or you don't, and that's cool. Like, I just trust like underneath you get it, like some part of you, even you might not get it consciously, like your brain might not understand it, but there's a part of you that knows exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah, it's fascinating. Like, you know, for me, it's especially with certain people, sometimes I don't have to understand what they're saying. It's about the transmission and
The essence.
The essence of what they're saying. Like, I don't retain the information. And even the other day, we were giving Miroslav a transmission on upping his social media game, and like I'm like giving it to him, giving him all the pieces, talking to the essence of it, and then he'd be like, "Oh, that was great. Can you say that again so I can write it down?" I'm like, I don't know what I said. Like, don't try and get me to repeat myself.
Don't worry about the words.
Yeah. Just
take the
receive
transmission.
it. And
Just
Vic's
receive.
like, babe, don't write it down. It's a transmission. And he's like, no, I need it.
I love that. But it's true because you know, our world is such a weird intersection of different bodies of work, if you will. You know, like there's Ishtar, which is you know, shamanic school of temple arts, and there's the spiral, which is, you know, a combination of kinesiology, NLP, you know, coaching world, and it's very influenced by John DeMartini and very influenced by what's the dude's name, David R. Hawkins, you know, scale of consciousness stuff, and then there's chakra stuff. There's a lot of shadow work there, which is Jungian. And then there's you know, womb work, you know, there's like so many different quote unquote pieces that overlap to create this really unique subculture of spirituality that we're involved in, right? And that's kind of what exists in our tiny little bubble. And then we come in with like the art and creativity, which that's the thing that everyone is excited about us being here.
Yeah.
Because what we bring is different. It's like, you know, ritual theater, but like the theater aspect, you know, the ritual aspect is cool here, is established here, but we bring the theater, the arts, you know, and, you know, the excellence in the arts and the creativity.
Yeah, it's been really nice. Like, you know, even just people speaking and something you and I have thrown towards one another, and what I speak about on social media and with my clients is like, it's just giving permission, you know, and that's what people are getting from us being up here in the creativity space, because they're more in the spirituality, like temple arts area, where now we're like both framing it and unframing it at the same time, of like, oh, this is like the creative version of it. This is how you channel it into different artistic expressions and creations in the world, and that's what people want from us being here, you know. Like even Vic the other day was like, oh my god, my like creativity channel is just on from the boys being next door, and like it's nice.
I love that. Yeah, it's so nice to be valued for what you bring, you know. I just felt like, for me personally, being in Sydney, I just felt like I was a fucking ghost. I feel like I was not being seen or heard or felt or recognized in any way. And then just being up here, leaving Sydney behind, doing the training, chopping my hair off, and just really just getting comfortable with just saying goodbye to the old identity and feeling what's emerging now. Already I can feel like my field, opening up. Yeah, my field is opening up. People are seeing me differently. People, and that's what happens, right? When you allow yourself to be seen, well, people see you and they hear you and they recognize you. And I've had like opportunities opening up from America, you know, in the music industry, shit that I'd like put on the back burner or just like forgot about. All of a sudden, it's a possibility again, just because my field is opening up.
Yeah, or even just the first time you. I'm still getting used to it. The first time Dobacco and I saw you since when we got up, you know, we both commented afterwards, like, oh, Alpha's different now. Alpha's lighter.
Yeah, glowing.
Yeah.
Nice. Thanks, guys. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah. I think it's a combination of the land, you know, and if you've ever been to the Northern Rivers, you'll know, like, the land here is very healing for, you know, a lot of reasons. One is, you know, Indigenous people used to come here as a meeting place, and it's a lot of women's work is done here, and the land is full of obsidian.
Yeah, it's on black obsidian, which is like the healing and dark mirror at the same time. Yeah, which people can get spit out from at the same time.
Yeah, we were talking about this at dinner last night.
Yeah.
The people that stay too long in this area and kind of overcook themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Us were speaking about that maybe some of the older people here that you see a bit of some crazies on the street and whatnot. And I was talking about, so I know, you know, one of them, I won't say names on here, but the two of the original gang of spiritualists that came from India to here to create the, like, I guess the white version of the Rainbow Tribe, because it still was already a Rainbow Tribe of Indigenous people, but to claim it as like the Australian version of India's spiritual community. And yeah, I know two of the people from that, and they're magical cosmic people, but they're also on a little bit of the side of the, like, yeah, it looks like you've had way too many trips in your life. And these stories you've told me, I've heard a couple of times now. And it's like, yeah, does that happen when you stay here for too long? It was, it's like, one of the friends last night was saying, you know, Byron is something that sort of chews you up and spits you out, but it's a process that is healing at the same time. It like can chew up the shit you don't need anymore and then spit you out and like rebirth you. But some people choose to just stay continuing to get chewed up.
Totally. Well, because you can't just keep healing forever.
No.
You know, because healing is such a transformational process. You can't just be in the washing machine forever. At some point, you need to do something with, you know, the wisdom that you've gained, which is interesting, right? Because coming out of the training, so we work with 3 archetypes: healer, leader, creator. I had a massive integration and upgrade on the healer archetype in myself, where I was like, okay, if there's nothing to heal, what does the healer become? And for me, it was like the vitalist. It's like the goal is not to heal because there's nothing wrong, nothing broken, nothing to fix. It's just moving toward more and more vitality. And there's no end point to that. It's just like, how much more life can you channel through your body? Can you animate yourself with, right? It's about being vital. And I just feel like places like Byron, places like Bali, you know, you go to Bali for healing, Ubud, whatever. It's like, you can't just be in that healing zone forever. You will be cooked hot out.
I'm curious, like, because I think of like someone like Dayadova, how she goes around to different portals of healing spaces and goes and channels the songs of there. Like, you know, for instance, like, it sounds like the 3 of us are already discussing, like, when we're done with the Northern Rivers is to go to Bali, is like, can you skip from healing place to healing place and it actually gives you different transmissions and it's not like the same frequency? It's like you tune into a new frequency rather than going somewhere else that doesn't have those same healing properties and doing, because I'm sure there's medicine in that, but can you go from one to the other without frying your whatever, your healing center or whatever? You know, there's different medicines to, it's like, you know, I can take magnesium or Jing or something like that like brings that part up in my body, of that kind of vitamin, and then I go over here and I start taking this other plant medicine, I start taking some mushrooms or whatever. Is that the same with different landmarks across the world?
I think so. Yeah, I think there are different energetic portals around the place. I definitely felt a certain frequency of Berlin, and I think that's another place in the world, maybe not as healing as Byron or Bali, but there is a certain kind of, there's a magnetism there that draws a lot of people. They do a lot of work.
Yeah, I think people get to move through their shadows there.
Yeah, big time. And you know, I had a huge like personal growth journey while I was there, you know, feeling into different sides of myself, my sexuality. There was also, you know, the darker side of, you know, the clubbing and drugs and sex that can happen in Berlin. It's pretty much, you can get whatever you want in that city, and it's just like a smorgasbord of hedonism. And yeah, stay there for a while, have a great time, you know, it's cathartic. But for sure, I saw some friends and acquaintances really get, you know, chewed up, spat out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's so many things. Like, one is the frequency of the land and why you're called to go there as well. You know, your intention for being there. Like, I think someone like Deadova, she doesn't go to those places to heal like herself. She goes to be a channel, to be an activation point, and then to share with the world, right? So, you know, if you're going to wherever these places are and you're in service to maybe the people who are there, you're in service to the land, or you're in service to, you know, something bigger than yourself, you know, that's going to play a part in it as well. And, you know, I think that another aspect is the astrological blueprint, right? Because you have like these lines that run through different points in your chart as well. So different areas in the world are going to activate different aspects in your, depending on your birth chart. So that's another aspect to it as well. Like for me, when I was in New Orleans in 2019 and I started recording the album, partly I went there because I had to be there on my birthday because it was going to activate my midheaven and something else. Like there was a line that ran through New Orleans, and that's where I had to be in order for me to, like, you know, have the best kind of cycle or something like that. So when I got there, that kickstarted the whole album journey, which was, none of that was planned. It was just like, douche, I'm going to record an album, and that just kind of happened. And so if you look at your birth chart, you'll see there's certain lines that run through different places, and you can predict what it's going to activate in you or what it's going to not be good for. So fascinating stuff. This is a lot of factors.
Oh my God, we're true Northern Riverers now.
Riverers. There must be a better term. Riverers.
We're sliving to the full extent of being in the Byron Bay. We're anti-vax.
Trigger.
Fully
Northern slivers.
Northern slivers. So good.
Yes.
Talking about the astrological lines that we can go to trace our most abundant versions of living. To anyone else that's listening, going, oh my God, yep, they fit the stereotype, and we're proud.
We're proud. No, but like, it's funny, right? Because it's combos and it's like alchemical reactions. Like a lot of people who come to Byron are very laid back. It's like for holidays, for healing, for, you know, feminine kind of surrender. But I feel like since I've been here, I've been like on fire. I feel like, I'm fucking doing shit. I'm getting up early in the morning. I want to work. I want to create. It's actually, because for me, you know, being in Sydney, like that's what I've been used to, and working there has felt like, oh fuck, I got to do this. I got to do that. Oh shit, I got to do this lead page. But here it's been like, oh, this is exciting. I want to create this. Like this is exciting. Like it's actually opening up my feminine energy, you know, and my Shakti and my life force. And I'm fucking using all the words now. I feel like if anything, it's inspiring me and giving me more life force to create, you know, but it depends on the person, right? And someone can go to Sydney and maybe that's what will happen for them there because the energy is go, go, go.
Well, yeah, that's when you said the thing about Deadova, how she doesn't go to places to heal. This is assumption, obviously. But she goes there to channel what is needed and of service of that place. I think that's an important part of the feedback loop that makes sure you don't get spit out so quickly, is like, what are you contributing to the community, and especially coming up to this community here, and them definitely wanting the permission pieces around creativity from us is that's our contribution. At the same time, it's not only because there's definitely a healing energy for me and like regulating my nervous system up here, but it's also my contribution to the community and the contribution that you know, that the certain values of up here can ease my nervous system, and I can jump more into temple arts and ritual. But I think the feedback loop of healing and receiving, and then also giving and being of service helps that not go, okay, your piece is done then if you're not contributing back.
Yeah, definitely. Which reminds me, you know, I really feel like I would love to connect with, you know, the First Nations people and the custodians in this area, because that's a big part as well, you know, of just actually meeting who are the custodians of the land here, like who are the traditional owners, and feeling also like being here is a sense of okayness. You know, there's a sense of my contribution here is actually something positive and beneficial, and I'm not just taking from the land. You know, that's the whole beef that I have with entrepreneurs going to Bali, and that's the country that, not the country, it's not a country, it's an island, but obviously me being Indonesian, you know, when I go to Bali, I don't have the same tourist experience that a lot of people have, or I don't have the same, you know, entrepreneur experience, because for me, like, these are my people. These are like, I have an emotional connection, and I speak the language, and, you know, when I kind of like, even just like having maids or whatever, like, I feel a little bit uneasy about that sometimes, you know. It's hard for me to just say, hey, can you get me this thing, or can you do this thing for me, because I'm like, no, this is my people, you know. So being in Bali for me, like, and when I see spiritual entrepreneurs who go there only to take, that can trigger me for sure.
Yeah, fascinating to think about that. I'm curious to hear, like, how do you feel in difference to like doing that here?
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, right? Because I have an emotional connection because part of my identity being Indonesian, but I don't have the identity of being Indigenous here. So therefore, it's just not in my, it's just not like the first thing that I think of, you know? And that's the way we're designed, right? It's like, oh, that's like me, therefore I feel it more. I mean, I lived in Sydney, I've lived in Eora for all of my life, and, you know, only in the last few years have I come to the realization, oh shit, this is stolen land, and you know, sovereignty was never ceded, and all of these things. I didn't, in my childhood, I didn't think about those things. You know, was not in my awareness at all.
Yeah, it's so fascinating. Like, I never connected with the elders of Sydney. I was very lucky to have one of my friends down home in Jervis Bay that his grandfather was like one of the head elders of Jervis Bay and Wreck Bay and the rest of the area, that I was raised with that, but I didn't know at the time that he was an elder, and the lessons that he was teaching through story at the time. When I got older, I was like, I was connected to him, you know. That was really nice. But like Sydney, it's like I wouldn't even know where to connect that. I've met a few like Indigenous community and like elder women and weavers, but that's about it. But here I'm very fascinated with what the community is like in that way, like the Indigenous folk, and some interesting conversations happening around Wollumben, around, because it closed down during COVID because of the chains. Was supposedly, the conversation was like, people can contract COVID through the chains.
I didn't even know there were
because the
chains
final
there.
part of the ascent, you pull yourself up by a chain railing, and so the argument was, well, no one's going to go up there and clean the chain, so we're going to close it down because it's a COVID risk.
But now supposedly they are the First Nation people here are in talks about what's the best options going forward, because it should, like, quote unquote, should be opened back up by now. It was meant to be opened back up originally, what it said on the National Park website, but now the word is that they are possibly going to create that as like a sacred space that only First Nations people can go visit.
They're giving it a few more months to have the conversations.
Till March, it says now.
Yeah. I mean, there's so much that we don't know about the original spiritual blueprint of the lands that we live in. And then when you think about it, it's no wonder there's so many, you know, I guess, interesting or sometimes conflicting things happening, because, you know, there's the energetics and the ley lines of the lands that you live in. And if that area is not designed for, you know, men or women or this particular activity, energetically, it's going to conflict. It's not going to be supportive or for the activity that you're doing there, you know? Like in China, that's feng shui, and, you know, every Indigenous culture has a sense of, or has a sensitivity, right, to the energetics of the land that they live in. It's like, oh, you don't do business here because that's not what the energy is for. You know, this area is good for business. This is for birthing. This is for this. This is for meetings. This is for corroboree, whatever. But we don't have that wisdom because we just, you know, and it's part of the colonial mindset is just like, I want to build a dam here and I want to build a railroad here, and with absolutely no fucking no sensitivity to any of the energetics, and shit is fucked up.
Well, that's like even just like earlier we're talking about the tea tree lakes up here, and then one is very specifically a women's only, but all the tea tree lakes up here are Indigenous women's birthing lakes. That's like, oh well, I don't know what the latest is, but like there's certain ones where anyone can swim according to, I don't know, you know, if that's according to First Nations or if that's just colonial and gentrification rules. But yeah, it's making me think like, fuck, you know, like what extent, you know, of knowledge do I just not have, and am I disrespecting, and like how far does it go, you know, like you know, because it's, I don't know if we've talked about it on here. I've talked about it on my other podcast when I had the one around, what's the word I'm looking for? Appropriate cultural appropriation is like, you know, to what extent can it go? Like as you were just talking now, it's going down the thread of thinking about like, Wollumben and then birthing lakes, and it's like, oh, like maybe I shouldn't go into any of the tea tree lakes anymore until I find out what the actual thing is there. And I'm like, and then I just started going down on the thread. It's like, maybe I gotta leave the country, you know? I gotta go back to England or fucking Ireland or something like that. Maybe it's just not energetically right for me to be here at all, you know? It's like, okay, now reel it back, you know? Just one thing at a time.
Totally.
But yeah, definitely like getting that knowledge, you know, just even, you know, I'm curious around when going to Uluru, when I went there, and certain parts is like, this section is the feminine, this is the masculine, this is the men's side, this is the women's side, you know, like it's like, oh, should I even be standing on this side? Like I don't know enough, but definitely it's like this side was for men's business, this side was for women's business. How that worked, and just like so curious about in that time how all that was understood, and then I'm thinking about,
and how does it work if you're a gender fluid person?
They did have that,
Totally,
you know, there, and I'm sure there was certain, but like, you know, if this is just very commercialized for me in documentaries and whatnot, but you often see the gender fluid, the cis, the trans, the two-spirited people usually had their own little
Spaces.
cave, coven area where like they were sometimes like segregated, but I don't know if it was by choice or not, but they were like the top mystic of the crew that had to go off into their own space. But yeah, like a thing I was also thinking about around here is like, for instance, I know like the Blue Mountains of here in New South Wales, and the Southern Highlands and the Northern Rivers. these places were Indigenous trading spots, like or like gatherings, but not staying. And like there's certain areas that were you're not meant to stay. And I'm super curious how Indigenous folk, First Nations people of this land operated, and like how often were people moving, around, and what in like living in old times when you were whatever you spiritualist, shaman, paganism, any kind of people that their religion is nature and spirit, how they went. It sort of puts me into the state of like when you're moving a lot to know places where you're meant to be, and it sort of becomes an intersection with open relating, as like you're not meant to be monogamous with a certain part of land, and not meant to be monogamous in certain type of relationship, as like I guess that is, it's not a fully formed thought or anything right now, but it's definitely swirling around of like open relating, open being, fluid essence is like, this spreads into so many ways of life, discovering that in business right now, in decentralized autonomous organizations. My colonial brain is collapsing too fast.
Well, you said, should I go back to England or whatever it's like, but even England has its Indigenous lore, has its energetics, and has its ley lines, and has, when I was researching this, like years ago, I was researching ley lines, and all the druids knew about this, and that's why you can still see certain places in Europe where, because the original energetics were known, and so they would build certain things on particular grid points, and then because that's where they were, then they just continued. So it's like the courthouse would be here, or this is where the railway thing is, or this is where this is, or this is where the church is. A lot of that stuff is left over from the pagans and the druids, and because it was already there. So it was like, oh cool, well, we're just upgrading to Christianity now, so we'll just leave it there. And a lot of those places are supercharged. So even if you're in Europe or wherever you are, there's still going to be energetics, and there's a lot of mystery there that a lot of people are uncovering, and Avalon and all these places. So it's pretty fascinating. I find it fucking fascinating.
Yeah, for sure.
There's I wish I could remember, I can't even remember his name, but this architect, what's a one where you like get archaeologist. There's this guy, this is a very pointless story I'm about to say, because I have absolutely none of the pieces.
A lot of gaps in this one.
Fucking gaps.
Architect,
this
remember the architect that dug up the bones?
Go for it.
But like, I wish I could remember his name, but he talks about when he went and found ancient civilizations in the middle of the Amazon, where there's like old cities that used to be there, and now he's finding places like in England that are older than here in Australia, because Australia is meant to be the most ancient civilization. But he's finding places over in Europe and also in the Amazon that are older, according to the artifacts that he's finding.
Wow.
I wish I could remember. I have one of his books in my phone.
It's not Yuval, is it?
Nah.
Homo sapiens guy?
Nah, different guy. You guys talk and I will find his name.
Need to find out. Yeah, I mean, this podcast has taken such a turn.
We've taken a few turns along the way,
but that's
the point of this podcast, right?
Exactly. That is totally part of it. That is totally part of it. Yeah. I mean, also at the same time, I don't believe we can go backwards.
Graham Hancock, nice.
Yeah, I don't believe that we can erase colonialism. It's a part of our reality. It's brought us here, and like any kind of shadow work process, you need to be able to integrate the light and the shadow, and you need to be able to recognize, it sounds fucked to say, but colonialism has brought a lot of amazing things to the world. A lot of technologies, and of course it's done a lot of damage, but we can't erase the story.
No, you definitely don't want to erase, but there needs to be some sort of, efforts for healing and,
Absolutely.
and how do you move forward from here? You know,
so
you acknowledge
reconciliation for sure, acknowledgement, absolutely,
Yeah.
education, and trying to at least honor, you know, the things that have been taken and honoring that. But yeah, when I think about decolonization, it's like how do you decolonize? How do you take it out? Like, how do you remove it from reality? You know, how do you do that? I mean,
it's an impossible task, and I mean, yeah, I'm curious to hear some of the bigger ideas from Indigenous leaders and elders. Like, I've heard through like Uluru Statement of the Heart, like this idea of wanting to have like a sector of government that is representative of elders and Indigenous leaders, and not necessarily like them making policy, but they are, you know, asked for their opinions on certain things as they move through Parliament, and like integrating Indigenous voices in the structures, the institutions, and kind of creating a collaboration instead of dismantling the whole system, which creates a vacuum and, you know, huge instability. As much as like I just like the government, but I don't know if it would be right to tear it all down. It's I think Australia's gone through a huge evolution and like raising of consciousness in the past 10, 20 years. Like, I've seen it in my lifetime, from what I was learning about Australia in school to like how we see our country and how we, you know, acknowledge the land that we're on. Like, every time you go to an event, or, you know, even on Zoom calls, like, people acknowledge the country. Acknowledgement of country is a standard thing now. And 10 years ago, 15 years ago,
it wasn't even heard of.
You didn't even know what that was.
Yeah, and I think that's really great, and obviously it's also, you know, just a tiny little blip in what needs to happen. But yeah, I guess, you know, I think a lot of people hear decolonization and they're like how, what the fuck, what does that look like? You know, what does that mean? And we're still at the phase where we're hearing what's wrong with the way things are, and not a lot of voices are coming through that talk about, well, what is possible, like where do we want to move to, what does it look like what is the vision, you know, what is the dream, like what is the ideal, because you can't send people back to where they came from. Like, that's never going to work, because it's just not possible, right? So what does it look like to honor everybody and to find a harmonious way of living that honors the land, that honors, you know, the people who have lived here and cared for this land for fucking thousands and thousands of years, and also recognizing that now we have, you know, we have so many more people who've come from different lands. It's just like, it's highly complex. And I'm just curious to hear, like, who are the Indigenous leaders who are talking about what that vision of integration looks like.
Well, there's what's that First Nation woman's name in Parliament now? Is Lydia
Thorpe?
someone?
Senator Lydia
she's
Thorpe.
Definitely talking about the future and the possibility and integrating Indigenous people into corporate Australia and political Australia, and how that works. And then you know, like, I'm still constantly inspired by I can't remember his name, but I remember at Invasion Day protests, and the guy from Parliament came down, the Greens guy, and he was just fucking tearing Parliament apart. Like, where is everyone else? Like, these are the people that need to go down, these are the people. And he's like, I want to let you know, in Parliament, after you all went to the Black Lives Matter protest, even when COVID was happening, when you told us that this needs to change, that day a legislation was changed because you all came out. So don't think by going to protest nothing happens. You know, something fucking happens if you let your voice be heard. And you know, there was a point at those, before that march, like the day before, they were like, we're handing out a few $1,000 fines, you're going to get locked up, we will beat you up with this, like it's within our right to do that, but people just keep going, we're showing up for that Black Lives Matter protest, and yeah, it fucking changed shit, and it continues to change shit, and people like Lydia's voices are getting heard within there and creating the future, and I think a lot of non-First Nation people's shadows are getting revealed, you know, like even my own, like I'm saying, descent, it's like, oh shit, what happens? Do I just have to leave, you know, like, oh, panic, you know, and like, but that's it, but like, I can honor that and be okay with feeling that and moving through it and just being, oh, cool, obviously there's something there that goes, oh, I don't feel right, but doesn't mean like, oh, then run away, you know, it's like, okay, continue to drop in more and get more answers and learn more. And I feel that's a possibility here. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Ooh, big journeys in our podcast tonight.
Big pieces.
Some big pieces that we've had to really journey.
That we're transmitting and channeling through to the people in the field.
Yes. Are you feeling the field? Are you feeling the expansion?
I feel it.
Is the frequency resonating with in your nervous system?
Oh my goodness gracious. Wow.
Final thoughts, and I want to do final thoughts and what is to come Sliving in Northern Rivers.
All right.
On it for everyone.
Integration tasks.
Yeah, integration tasks. How are you going to embody and integrate this into your frequency so you can resonate a palpable utopia?
I'll go first.
Dobacco Sunset says,
kick us off. I feel inspired to connect more in with the land and find more ways to give back to community, to the land. Connect with the Indigenous community here in some form that feels appropriate as like a new arrival to this land, and also learn a little bit more about even the more modern ways, like contemporary ways that the land's getting used. Like we're surrounded by sugarcane. There's cows on this property as well. Like even the things that are out on the front door. Like I don't really know much about farming. This is the first time I've lived outside a city. Like I'm a city boy.
It's the first time you've lived outside a city.
First time living outside the big smoke. So all these different ways I want to feel the land on a deeper level, whether it's, you know, the history, connecting with Indigenous community and farming, agriculture, permaculture, and how to be sustainable on the land. I think that's a really important piece that I'm taking with me after this chat.
It's landing.
It's landing.
It's landing for me.
Hectic. Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I feel similarly in that I feel I definitely want to connect, not just with the land, you know, but with the people. That's important. I think, you know, every time I'm in ritual and there's someone who gives an acknowledgement of country, they often talk about the land, which is really beautiful. It's easy to connect with the land because it's not personal. It's like, oh yeah, I can feel the land, you know, it's my root chakra, like, which is beautiful, but like there are very real stories, and not just histories, but present day stories of people still fighting for their sovereignty, still fighting for their human rights, still fighting to live and exist on land that actually belongs to them. It's been there for thousands of years. So that for me is something that I have just been feeling this like avoidance of in me, and I want to lean into that. And see in what ways can I be of service and be of value with what I do, and, you know, whatever resources that I have that feels important. And also I don't know how long I'll be here, you know, I'm not sure. So it's like not just for this space, like not just for this place, this area, but like actually, you know, wherever I go in the world, just to make a conscious effort to be informed about, you know, what are the politics, what are the historical things that I should know of, and what is the actual current situation. Yeah, just kind of be more aware and actually make efforts to be in integrity with where I'm living.
Yeah. There's like, I guess in my body right now and my mind, it's like, I don't wanna end on the great white hope energy of like, I'm a white man that's gonna connect with the Indigenous community and make sure everything's okay. And I'm not saying that's what we're doing, but like, there's definitely that part of me that feels like,
You're gonna be a crypto lord.
No, it's it gives me like a bit of the energy of like, maybe controversial, of like, I'm gonna go to Africa and save the starving children, you know. Energy is sitting in me a bit of like people that go there and they're like, do it for a week and they're like, I'm a humanitarian, I saved the world, you are all peasants because you've never been to Africa and helped the starving children. I donate $1 a week, so
yes, Mother Teresa, Princess Diana.
So it's like a part of me doesn't want to say I'm going to go connect with the Indigenous culture because this is a tangent, but it's like
we're trying to round out the podcast right now.
It's honouring what's true. It's the essence. It's what's landing. Is
follow the thread.
A mentor of mine taught me how to connect in with my own ancestors and follow my own ancestral line and create connections with them, right? And he always said, when you're in ritual and you call them in and you're in conversation, never promise anything. Never ever promise anything because you'll create bad juju, you'll create bad lines. Always make an offering, like, here I offer this, I share this, and just thank you for the time, you know? And it just, to me, there's a part of me that doesn't want to go, I'm going to go out and connect with this, because what if my priorities don't end up being that, you know? It's like, I'm not going to, there is a part of me that wants to say that because we've just talked about it and it feels really right to do it, but to put that word out there, and then if I don't prioritize it for a while, or ever, yeah, it won't feel nice in my body, you know? Like, it feels like I'm creating like a failed connect. It's like, I'm gonna do this and then never doing it and that doesn't feel completely right in my body. But what does feel right in my body is what usually happens as a byproduct for me is going out and, like, the last time I was here, I was constantly going out and finding sacred spaces, and sometimes that also led to like, hey, you shouldn't be here, you know? But by doing that usually connects me with certain people that, rather than me going out and seeking it, I'm going to go to Lismore and go help the Indigenous youth community, is instead just actually it is connecting to land, and then by a byproduct of that, if something does connect, that really helps. But living in the Northern Rivers for me is, right now, is just regulating my nervous system into here, because I don't feel like I've fully landed yet. I've been go, And I do see more go. Like there's still a lot of people I want to visit and events I want to do and lands I want to visit, but prioritizing that my nervous system adjusts to the rhythm of here, because I've still got a lot of Sydney pacing going in my system.
Yeah.
So sliving is like instead of slaying and living, it's like slowing down and living.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah.
Enjoy the slow down.
Yeah.
Yeah. The bodywork session I had yesterday was really helpful. It was really slow, and afterwards I was like, oh, okay, I'm breathing. Super important. Yeah. You know, it's close to the end of the year. We only have a few more weeks until December is done, and it's January, and there's so many new things happening in 2022. And I think just for those of you listening at home, like really just starting to ask yourself the question of, well, how do you want to feel in 2022? You know, what are your core desired states? What are your core desired feelings? What's going to be the priority for you? Because you can't control everything that happens. You know, sometimes life is chaotic and wild, but you can focus on developing your core states of being. That's something that you totally have control over. And, you know, when you vibrate a particular frequency, when you vibrate a particular essence, then life tends to also, you know, fall into alignment around that. So I just wanted to leave you with that, because that's what I'm starting to feel into. Like, what do I want to feel next year? As opposed to like, what are my goals? It's like, no, just what do I want to feel as my baseline, as my thing to come back to.
Yeah. I get really overwhelmed by New Year's. Like for instance, we're like, I'm doing really bad at wrapping up, but how we're like having this big topic of, do we go to Emergence? You're performing there, or Tian's Wild Seeds and this and that. And every year it's all these options, and I'm like, it's too much for me. Like it makes me want to do nothing on New Year's, because there's too much significance, and at the same time I love the ritual of New Year's, because though we're all on different times within that like 24 hours or so, everyone is setting a new intention for the year. It's like the biggest portal of ritual. It's like everyone in the world almost is doing some form of ritual, some sort of intention setting. I feel like there is a big portal there, that it is cliche, like, well, who am I going to be in 2022 or 2023 or whatever? But I think that's really nice to just feel into, this is the biggest portal of ritual every year. Yeah,
hectic. Oof. Portal me up, baby. Well, if you're listening to this, I'm running a webinar.
plug.
It's called Intention 2022. It's a 3-hour webinar. Details will come very soon. The lead page should be up by the time you listen to this podcast. And really, it's about that. It's like, I'm not saying you have to map out your whole year, but what I am saying is you can have an intentionally lived year. And to me, that's what the most important thing is. Like, live like you fucking mean it. Live every day intentionally. Choose your life, choose your days, choose your year, choose how you feel, make choices that are in alignment with who you are and what's important to you. And, you know, that for me has been a game changer. So that's what I want to offer to you for 2022. If you're interested, hit me up. Hell yeah, I'm going to fucking start selling all my shit. Best believe.
You better sell.
You better. All right, well, we're going to go and watch RuPaul's Drag Race, the final episode. We love you. As always, make sure to let us know what you got from this episode, what you needed today.
Big love. Bye-bye.
Much love.
Wait.